Okay, okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today, I would like to try to explain particularly the question of story for SPM, especially dedicated to my students from 5D lah. Mimi Asmida and also Effendi, Lokman, and everyone else who are interested in not just answering the SPM question for story, but also writing stories, because I believe that writing stories is a very okay. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go to the slide. Okay, we will try to cover all of this. First, we will focus on overview, and then how to analyze the questions, and then using the heal, and also show not tell, and then expanding the events. Alright, so before we start, I would like to just quote this: narrative imagining or story is the fundamental instrument of thought. Rational capacities depend upon it. It is our chief means of looking into the future, or predicting, of planning and explaining. Susah mak. Berimajinasi naratif, okay, iaitu bercerita, adalah instrumen berfikir paling asas. Kemampuan berfikir secara rasional bergantung padanya. Ianya adalah cara utama untuk kita melihat ke masa hadapan, untuk meramal, merancang dan menjelaskan. As I have mentioned earlier, for me, the ability to tell stories is one of the important skills for individuals, because I think that if you are able to tell stories about yourself or other people in a good way, with a good technique, not just macam mengumpat, bukannya mengumpat saja, tell good stories, okay, with good intention, with good objective, then you are able to do all of this, especially in reflecting on yourself and other people, so that you can be better people. Okay, that's why I really like story writing, and not just for SPM but also for life in general. Do you realize that even our religious texts, not just Quran, other religious texts as well, are books of stories that can help us think and ponder and learn from history and past events, so that we can implement whatever we learn in the present and our future. Now, because we are talking about SPM in particular, I want you to ask yourself, should you really choose an answer story question? First of all, I need you to talk to your teacher. For Mimi, Effendi, Lokman, or Shimir, or whoever. There's so many good students in my class actually. So if you think that you would like to answer story question during SPM, please write at least 1 or 2 stories first. I think you are capable of answering questions for story. The advantage of answering story question is that it has less technical issues compared to report or review. There is an advantage of answering story question compared to those other questions, but you need to try first. Try to achieve the right length of answer at the right time with the right technique. If you have tried it before in previous examination and you didn't manage to complete your story or whatever, I think that's a problem for you. If you still want to answer it during SPM, you can try again. Practice before you show yourself, okay? Number 2, have you practiced it multiple times? Just as any other questions, even for report and review or article, right? Do you understand how to use the possible content points, CP, for story question in your narrative essay? You will have 3 content points, CP1, CP2, CP3, just like other questions, but do you know how to implement them in your story without going overboard with your time and also word count? Ask that question to yourself and ask that to your teacher. Alright, how should we analyze the question for story? Okay, here's the 2021 SPM question. Let's read it together. Your teacher has asked you to write a story for your English club newsletter. The story must begin with the following words. If I were given 3 wishes, I would. In your story, you must describe your wishes and talk about the impact of your wishes on you and others. Write your story. So I highlighted the word begin there because I have a hunch. Because we only have had 2 several lines SPM exams, right? So we don't know what will happen in the future, but the word begin can be replaced, just like in the previous format of SPM. The story must end with, like that, okay? So you have to be prepared for that. Here they gave us 8 words to begin your story with, so you are less restricted in that sense. But the 2 points, C2 and C3, are actually very general, very broad. Describe your wishes. So the wish can be anything, and your description is not restricted to anything. And then you have to talk about the impact of your wishes on you yourself and the other people around. This is 2022 SPM question. Your teacher has asked you to write a story as your homework. The story must begin with the following words. Also beginner. It was the beginning of a new day for Kumar. The place looked 13 words to begin your story with. And then the 2 points are an interesting discovery Kumar made at the place, that's C2, and how the discovery changed Kumar's impression of the place. The words given to begin your story are not ending. Maybe in this year, 2023, who knows, right? I realized if it was the previous format, they used to give 10 words only, but this time it's not fixed. Okay, and now you have to use the character Kumar as the third person. You cannot say I, right? Because being there for Kumar, and then after that you cannot use the pronoun I already. He, obviously Kumar is a man or a boy, so you have to use he. And it has to be focused on a place and how a discovery at that place changed your perception of the place. Okay, so we have analyzed the questions. I hope you can analyze any questions for story just like that. You have to identify the C1, C2, C3 and keywords of those questions. Now I want you to recall, because I'm very sure you have been taught this. I call this the hill, bukit kanan gitu kan, bukit. So you have to remember that in order for a body of text to be considered as a narrative, it has to have two things: a problem and a solution, an issue that was resolved in that story as well. By having an issue or a problem, and to make that problem resolved, you will have inevitably a climax for that story, because we are not looking for a description of an event or a series of events, but rather it has to have a problem that is solved, maybe not just by the main character but also whoever that is involved in that story. So I have shared this in my Instagram post. These are just 6 ways we can hook our reader, but these hooks can be used also in the story itself. So these hooks are not just for story, right? They can be used for other format of essays as well, but I want you to focus only on using them for stories. Okay, let's just go through it. I've already mentioned this in class, but just for the other audience, right? So the first one is famous quote or advice. This one I quoted a Malay proverb here: better your children die than your tradition. Biar mati anak, jangan mati adat. It's a very strong line, and hopefully hook your reader's attention, and hopefully you can sustain that interest until the end of your essay. Okay, next, number 2, the definition of term or keywords. I didn't think this is a proper thing to use for narrative. Let's go on. Dialogue or monologue, I use this for review. I think you can always use it for your story, starting your story, right? And then you can also describe the setting. It can mean 3 things: time setting, character setting, or place setting. The time, how can you tell the time? How can you describe your characters? How they're feeling? What are they doing? The actions of the characters. And also you can describe the place where the actions are happening. You can also start with question. I insist that if you want to use question, you have to answer the question directly. Next, for facts and statistics, I don't think it is so appropriate for narrative. Disregard that. A story plot, right? When you write this story plot, you have to make it very, very simplified. It would be better if you write only 1 or 2 words, a few words for every point of it. So you have 5 points, right? You have to elaborate it into 1 paragraph. So that must be a very challenging task, right? Now, how to elaborate each event? Okay, the first one is, I have mentioned this before, but you can always elaborate an event, an action, and put in dialogue. One of the purposes of using dialogue is to show the emotion of the character. In real life, we can analyze what people are feeling by the things that they say or don't say, right? But don't overuse it. Okay? And then remember to show, not tell. So it's not a descriptive essay. So you have to help the reader to imagine the events that are happening, the actions that are done by the characters, and also the feelings of the characters. For example, don't tell the reader that the character is feeling anger. How do you know that the character is angry? Maybe he's clenching his fist, or that his face turned red, and then you have to describe the setting. Okay, something that is observable, something that you can see, you can hear, you can taste, you can touch, you put into words, just sparingly. If you do it too much, you will too long, okay, and you will take too much time. It's not good. You need some time to reread your essay and all of the other answers so that you can edit your small errors. And lastly, you can also elaborate those events by using WH questions. So for example, why is he doing this? Why is the character doing this? So you explain that answer briefly. Choose to highlight only very important events that help the plot move forward. Okay, features of a narrative. The tense is something that can be debated because some of the famous novels in the world are written in present tense, right? But I would like my students to focus on past tense for narrative. Simple past tense, past continuous tense, past perfect tense. Do not use present tense. It's very confusing even for me. And remember to choose strong verbs instead of simple verbs in adverb. The words that ends with ly, right? She ran quickly. She dashed. Like that. It's the only example that I use because I ran out of ideas. Okay, and remember the 5 senses I have mentioned before. What we can see, hear, smell, taste, and touch on the scene where you want to focus on. But remember, all of these things you have to use sparingly. Don't overdo it, or else you will go down to the rabbit hole of explaining every little bit of detail. Your explanation must have a purpose to move the plot forward, or making the reader understand what is the motive of any actions that the characters are doing. And then for sentence structure, remember, you don't always use long-winded sentences. Sometimes you need to use short sentences to show that the characters are panicking or there is a sense of suspense. And for the long sentences, you need to explain or help the character and the reader to relax. Let's go back to this 2021 question about the 3 wishes. This is my suggestion for the story plot. I think we have to use first person because the 7 words given, if I were given the pronoun I, first person point of view, the first paragraph will talk about how the character is poor, but maybe in some sense we want to show that he is actually ungrateful. The problem is not really poverty. So the real problem for this story is when everything that he touched turns into gold. So the climax is his family turned to gold, and then the solution is he feels regret and he wished everything to turn normal. And then the closing is he have changed from ungrateful to grateful. So this change is what propels the plot forward. Okay, that's the purpose, the objective of the story. Every story and every narrative must have a purpose or an objective. Let's see how this turned into a real story. Right, so this is my first paragraph. The title, I think I would like you to write just the title before the story. It's not really a format, but I think it will help with the whole story. I start with a dialogue. If I were given 3 wishes, this is from the C1, right? I would ask to be rich 3 times. I remember I said this just 3 full moons before that night. I purposely use repeatedly 3 just to grab the attention of the reader. Then I found myself holding my own tongue from uttering that wish to the brightest star that was asking me for my 3 wishes. Can you believe it? A star talking to me, of all people. God must take pity on my extreme poverty that he sent this angel to help me, right? I thought to myself. So I must seize this opportunity. I wish I were rich with gold. I screamed to the sky with a grin on my face. That's my first wish. Here's the word for introduction is poor, in brackets ungrateful, and also the C1. So this is how I elaborate it. I have my dialogue, I have monologue there. Can you believe it? A star talking to me. So that's what the character is thinking, right? To show that this is a hint of ingratitude of the character. I put there, God must take pity on my extreme poverty. he sent this angel. So he is actually thinking that he's poor, so poor that God is sending him angels to provide him. That is giving the hint that he is ungrateful. And what I would like to highlight here, the red ones are actually idioms, right? Holding my own tongue, seize this opportunity. And then the blue words are actually C1 level vocabulary. Okay, and then C2 here is explaining my wishes. Right, the next paragraph is about the problem. Everything touched turned to gold. All right, your wish is granted. See, the sentence are sometimes short, sometimes long. Now, everything you touch will turn into gold. This is how the angel interpreted the wish of the character. The deep and loud voice said with a hint of solemnity, I wonder why. Slowly, the idea registered in my mind and I touched a small stone beside me and it turned into gold. Pure gold. Yes, thank you. Okay, my students ask me, teacher, can you use this? Can you have caps lock in your essay to show emotions through your writing, right? I scream to the sky. So the screaming is represented by the caps lock. I think. I wrapped my hands in my own shirt and ran back to my house. The whole family was overjoyed by my newfound ability. The next day, father went and exchanged the gold with money. We bought an abundance of food, new clothes, and soon we renovated the house. But I realized I was becoming weaker every time I turned stones to gold. So after a month, I was bedridden. Mom had to attend to me since I couldn't walk and my hands had long become useless since I couldn't touch anything without it turning into gold. So remember, C3 is about how the wish impacted the character and also the people around it. The people around it were very happy because with the gold they can have money, and then with the money they can buy food, new clothes, and also make the house better. But the wish has caused the character to be bedridden. So that's also answering the question C3. And the blue words here are C1 level words. Okay, wait. Just let's revisit the climax. The climax is the family turned to gold. One night, my hands were so itchy I couldn't stand it anymore, so I unwrapped it. So I forced myself up and went to the bathroom to let the water run through the itchy skin in between my fingers. Mom probably was thinking of the worst when she heard noises coming from my room that she ran towards the toilet hastily. So this sentence is also a complex sentence, right? Just like the first one. She accidentally ran into me while I was trying to get out of the toilet, and this is also a complex sentence. And my hands grabbed her arms out of reflex. Everything happened so fast that it took me a while to realize Mom was already frozen in gold. My mouth dropped in shock, but I was voiceless. My legs gave in and I fell to the floor. The next breath I inhaled was a big one and I exhaled together with the loudest scream I could muster. Oh, sorry, I forgot. Muster, I think, is also a low frequency word. Okay, let's go to the next one. The next one should be the following action or the solution, which is regret and wish everything turned to normal. Okay, so we have two more wishes here described, and also the impact of the wish, C3 over there, and also one complex sentence here, green in the middle. The familiar voice of the star suddenly said, "You have another 2 wishes for me to grant. Speak." See, just one word, right? So that shows that dialogue doesn't have to be so long. It has to serve its purpose. I wish my mom was back to her normal self. So no need for something in between, no need for explanation. The reader is already invested in the story that they know these two dialogues are coming from 2 different characters. I didn't even think twice about this wish, and suddenly my little brother rushed into the room in panic and accidentally touched me too. As my mom regained her consciousness, she started to faint again when she saw my brother's golden statue, and I stupidly went and tried to catch her fall. She had once again turned to gold in my arms. I was trembling in shock. I had killed my own family. Oh God, there was only one more wish to make, and I still had my mom and little brother as golden statues. I had no other choice but to say, "Dear star, I wish everything is back to normal." So here we can see that it is intertwined with the character's monologue, the flow of his logic as the events unfold. That thought is rushing into his head. As readers, we are brought together with the story, right? And this is the very, very short concluding paragraph. Another full moon had passed since then. My family had lost all the extra things we acquired from the gold I wished for. It was sad indeed, but knowing how more devastating it was to lose loved ones, losing wealth is nothing compared to that. I learned that contentment is all that I need to feel rich, and having my family with me is the only wealth that really matters. So that's concluding of the story. The three wish are already granted and taken back, and the character had learned his lesson that it's not about being poor or being rich, rather it is about being content with whatever you have. Okay, this is SPM 2022. Do you think you are able to write a story as brief as that, but achieving all of the objective of the story and also answering the CP questions? Do you think you can do that? Let's see. We already analyzed the question, right? So for me, I think I would do a story just like this. Remember, the character that we have to use is Kumar. And the introduction is the father of Kumar. Kumar's father had died of heart attack. That's the introduction. And the problem was Kumar thought that his dad didn't love him. Then the climax will be he was angry, turned the place upside down. As a solution, he found a keepsake box containing something that can change Kumar's perspective of his father and the place itself, right? Because the place is his father's bedroom or his father's house. And then the closing, he will become a dad as well. So he learned what does it take to be a father from the perspective of a father, not as a son only. So can you guess which one of these boxes answer the question? Remember, we want C1 over here. This is C1, right? It was the beginning of a new day for Kumar. The place looked, we will think about that later. And then find something interesting is the keepsake box, C2. And then how it changed is C3. So C2 and C3 is being answered in the same paragraph. Hopefully we can do that. So can you try elaborate the second point based on only this? So the word there is Kumar thought his dad didn't love him. That's it. Okay, from that phrase, you need to elaborate until you have a paragraph. On the left hand side, we have many aspects. We have dialogue, monologue, description of setting, character, show not tell, answer, WH question. The air in his room was especially still. His smell was still lingering around. Can't you not be so weak? His voice pierced through the fabric of time and suddenly startled Kumar. Perhaps it was his smell that triggered a flashback. His hands suddenly clenched and his heart almost burst out of his chest. You never loved me, Appa. As if he now had the courage to talk back to his dad, although just his ghost now. He was always stern with every one of his children. A voice of reasoning tried to calm his nerves down. He realized he's only fighting himself, both in grieving and in yearning. He realized he loves his Appa no matter what. But why can't he love him back? He thought to himself. So the problem here, we want to show how Kumar thought that his dad didn't love him. And then you see right at the end of this paragraph, we are putting those words into the paragraph itself. Can you identify which of these sentences are dialogue, monologue, description of character, setting, show not tell, and then answer the WH question? Okay, here it is. So the green ones are dialogue or monologue. So we have 4 there. And then the pink ones are describing the setting. The air in his room was especially still. We don't want the description to be too flowery. There's no point. For example, in this paragraph, we want to talk about how the smell of the room triggered a flashback so that he remember how his father treated him. That's why I used smell, right? Your description must have an objective. You know, in those days, students always use flowery sentences that have no purpose. You just put there just for the sake of having a description with no real purpose to the plot itself. Don't do that, okay? Okay, the purple one is the description of the character. Remember, you don't tell the reader how the character is feeling. You show how he is feeling through his action as a character. For example, in this paragraph, his hands clenched. His heart almost burst out of his chest to show that he is having anxiety attack. And then answering the WH questions is throughout. That's what helps us to guide our ideas. Alright, that's all. I hope that with the other points of this story plot, you are able to form a story just like I did here, okay, and make it in time, which is only 20, 30, 40. In under 40 minutes you have to be able to do that. Remember the heel, the words, and then the writing itself, and then edit your writing. Make sure that every little small errors are corrected, especially the to infinitive, the past tense, the plural. Alright, that is all. I hope you are able to implement whatever you have learned in this video. Thank you very much.